Many years ago, after my primary school education, my father dropped me off at Government College, Pangchin in Plateau State, where I was admitted for my post-primary education. It was an all-boys unity boarding school that brought students from various states across the country with the aim of promoting cultural and religious integration. While learning to take responsibility for myself in the boarding school, I remember having to live in constant fear of being bullied by older students at the slightest opportunity and sometimes being forced to give away the provisions bought for me by my parents. But I also remember good memories of learning with my peers, most of the things I now know today. Being my first exposure of meeting other citizens across cultural and ethnic divides, I remember meeting some of my friends who till date we remain in close contact. I've always wanted my children to enjoy what I experienced, but now I doubt that position. With the recent abduction of school children, molestation, bullying or starvation of students in some instances, the question of safety for children in boarding schools is now on the front burner. About a year ago, a distressed mother of a junior student of Deeper Life High School, Idoro in Akwa Ibom State, Deborah Okezi, cried out over alleged molestation suffered by her son Don Davies in school. Okezi, who took to her Facebook page, alleged that her son was not only molested but was also starved by some senior students at the school. The story leading to the death of 14-year-old Karen Hapuch Owandodo of Premier Academy, Lugbe, Abuja, is also one that left many heartbroken. Her parents narrated how their daughter was sexually assaulted and later died of complications because of a condom left in her private part. Most recently, the media space has also been awash with the story of Sylvester Romoni, a 12-year-old boy who recently passed away while nursing multiple internal injuries alleged to have been sustained after he was beaten by his fellow students who bullied him at a boarding school. The parents of the deceased said he was attacked for declining to join what he termed as the secondary school cult group, dominated by older students at Dowen College in Lekki, Lagos State. Many Nigerians who have passed through the boarding school will certainly be familiar with one form of physical assault or the other by older students. How safe is the boarding school in Nigeria today, and what should parents do in this circumstance? This will be our focus on issues today. I am Ayuba. Thank you for joining. Before the discussion, let's hear what Nigerians on the street have to say about this.
During my own time, when I went through a boarding school, there was a lot of discipline. And I enjoyed my stay in boarding school because the senior prefects were taking care of the junior ones. And so, in short, when it is time for us to go home on vacation, I feel as if I should remain back. The boarding school today is not like the one of before. You know, the bully this thing has been on for some time now. It's just that the school system are taking things for granted. And that is why it has gone to the level that children will have demonic heart to kill another child in the same school. I don't encourage boarding school because of what has just happened.
Yes, I will allow my child to go to boarding school simply because I believe the teachers there can, I will trust them that they will guide the child in a way that he will learn very well, you understand? If family can guide their children in a way that they're supposed to grow, I don't think we'll have issue of bullying, you understand? A situation whereby a common, is lack of orientation from the parents to their children that lead to this bullying, you understand? So that is it.
I don't go allow my child to go boarding school. The time when my child never grow safe, I don't allow them to go boarding school, especially secondary school, because many things now they happen for secondary school, for boarding school. So some parents don't know about that one.
In the boarding school, things happens anyhow. But every wise parent always interact with the children, even during holiday, ask them what they are passing through. And boarding school is a where you see many characters manifesting. People do anything anyhow. But you as a parent need to come closer to your baby and know what the child is passing through and give your own advice.
I think the school can do. They establish what we call a group of lecturers or teachers who are very educated to advise the head, that is maybe the principal or the headmaster or the VC. On the set of a committee that will be watching every movement of every student or our children. Because now our children, even primary school, they are more than you they are more clever than you that went to university. So when they set up this committee, they will be finding out what is happening by even asking one of the small children. Because most of them are very sharp. They will tell you some of them are in courtism.
Well, there you have it. With me in the studio is Olani Oluwamayowa, research officer from Clean Foundation, and he'll be giving us thoughts and perspectives around this issue. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Yeah. All right, now let's begin with this, story about bullying and harassment and molestation of children in boarding schools. First, with the recent one. Yeah. What's your reaction, to this very story?
It's becoming one too many, and this is another troubling story coming from secondary schools in Nigeria. Not too long ago, we were still battling with the reality of what happened to that young girl at that Premier Academy at Lugbe here in Abuja. Then we suddenly heard of this. We've not even come to terms with the reality, the shock that left us with the story of the young girl that was brutally, because there's no other way to describe that. If a small girl will be raped and condom left in her to the point that led to her death, we've not really left that until we heard of this again. It's becoming so worrisome. For any parent, this is something that you don't want to hear. It's traumatic, to say the least, because there's no way you want to imagine all of these things that happen to a small child of 12-year-old, beaten, kicked in the head, till some internal organs were damaged. It's really troubling. So basically, it's not something a parent will want to think about at any time, because it's very traumatic.
And it appears as if we are having more increase in these cases. What has changed really? Is it the behavior of school children that is changing, and are we also changing with that, in your opinion?
I think on the large spectrum of this will have to do with our social value, our value system as a people, that has affected the upcoming generations too. We've seen the kind of music we listen to, the kind of videos we see. We see videos of violence, very heavy ones that even adults are not supposed to be seeing, if you want to remain sane, But we see that children are exposed to this. They are exposed to all manner of, even from songs to the video they see, they are exposed to all forms of violence. And there's at one point when you begin to continuously see these kind of things, there's at a point that you want to exercise some of those things that you are seeing. And so you see that play out, even if it's a small child. You see that play out in the behavior of the person. So I think it's a value thing. We need to redefine what value is for us. We, parents, the entire society needs to come to that point where we all stand out of this entire thing and look at what is happening in our society and ask ourselves some very basic questions. Is this how we want to continue? If we need, or if we want to protect our words, it's critical.
When you hear some people say, sometimes children that are known to be stubborn from their homes, the boarding school is considered as the last place to just go dump them, because maybe it would teach them some lesson.
It only wasn't there.
There's that thinking as well. So let's look at the role of parents in this instance. What's the role that parents are supposed to be playing?
Unfortunately, the economic reality of the 21st century has created a lot of absentee parents, parents that are not even available for their kids, parents that do not know what is going on with their kids. You know, the kind of relationship that exists between parents and children also determines what kind of thing you get from your children. So if you've had a relationship that is very stern with your children, they become very isolated from you, to the point that if something is happening to them, they can come to divulge it. But not to be. But unfortunately, we are at this point where parenting seems very abstract. That parents have committed the development of their kids to schools, to aliens, in quotes, people who really do not know them. Parents have actually succumbed to the pressure of the economic realities of the 21st century and use their children or leave their children to anybody just to help them raise. You can't give your child to someone to raise for you. It's not proper.
But, you know, another point, you know, to look at is the fact that some will say, well, isn't it why the schools are there, you know, to take care of these children and discipline them and make sure that, you know, they behave well?
The first point,
some of these parents, they pay hugely, you know, for their kids to attend some of these schools.
Yeah.
And then it turns out that in the end, you know, the parents suffer loss.
That's a very wrong perspective, if I'll be honest. That's a very wrong perspective. Why? The first point of socialization is not school. It's the family. So when from the very onset you have committed the responsibility of the family to school, there's a serious lag. And that means whatever the guy or the child is taught in school is what he will grow up with. So if you see a parent and a child that are worlds apart in terms of character and behavior, there are some questions we need to ask. If you have committed your child to school to raise for you, there is a serious challenge.
So are we now, does this now absolve, you know, the schools from
obviously not? Since they have agreed to take this responsibility, they should follow everything that is expected of them as what would be the right word to use for them now, to say they are the guardian of that child. Since the parents have, because of course we quite understand the peculiarity of the times we live in, since the school have now stepped up to help cushion the effect of the absenteeism of the parents, then it is expected that the school needs to follow through on that obligation and not just to leave the children or the students to develop themselves and just collect money, all for the sake of getting money from the parents.
All right, now, how about, you know, monitoring and to ensure safety of children? I mean, this is a boarding school, right?
Yeah.
Where you have older students. I mean, I went to a boarding school as well.
Yeah.
You have a mix of older students and junior students in the same place. And the whole idea was to, you know, for children to learn together and to learn to care for each other and take responsibility for each other and all of that. Are we matching the requirements that are supposed to be in place to make sure that there is safety even as we do that?
I think the first question we'll ask is, are there requirements at all? Are there even requirements? Who is playing the oversight on the schools? Who? It's one angle.
You have the house master, for instance, that's supposed to be the person that is also keeping watch.
But is he doing his job? Obviously, from all the stories that has been going around from the Cross River to Luke Bay to Darwin, we can safely conclude that they've not been doing their jobs. Because it's very apparent that these people really don't know what they are doing. They are just there for the money. It's very obvious. If a child will be bullied by senior students and the housemaster will not know, so why is he the housemaster? If his role is to monitor what is going on in the dorm, his job is to ensure the safety of all the students under his care, and he does not know that a student is being bullied, and then what's he doing there?
So I know that in some schools what you have is that these housemasters, you know, they actually stay with the students in the dormitories.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't know whether it's the same for all the schools, and whether we need to now make sure that there is someone keeping watch, because apparently some of these things that happen, they happen when these housemasters are
not available,
you know, away and all that.
Okay, so I think I need to tell a short story of myself. I didn't go to a dorm, but my school had that provision. So I had classmates then who would come back to class the next morning and tell us of how they were beaten. And yes, we had a housemaster who stayed with them all through. They sleep together, but yet they are being beaten.
Yet they are beaten.
Yes. So they take provisions to dorm or dormitory, and they finish it. In fact, it's not that they go behind them to pick it. They ask them to go bring it. So the student gives it to the senior student, and they finish it. And who do you even complain to? So the mindset growing up in that environment in my school then in Ibadan was that they too now have this mindset that, okay, I will wait my turn. I've been served this way. When I also get to that particular class, I'll serve others that same way too.
All right, now let's take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll continue our discussion on the program. Please stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. You're watching Issues on Trust Television, and we have in the studio Olani Olumayowa, Research Officer, Clean Foundation, giving us perspectives on the recent spike, if you may, about bullying and molestation of children in boarding schools and all of that. Now, should we perhaps consider scrapping boarding schools? I mean, in our time, since we cannot really keep watch and make sure that children are safe, and all that.
I don't think that's a viable option because, again, the realities of our time. For instance, you have a parent whose work has taken him to Lagos. The dad is in Lagos, and they originally reside in a very far away place. Take, for instance, in the far north. So the best place you can take the child to will be a place where a school where the child can be taken care of. So it's going to be very hard because of these economic realities of our time to say we scrap the entire system. I think the problem is not the system. The challenge is with the handling of the system. So it's not about scrapping it. It's how are we handling the system?
So how are we supposed to handle the system?
Okay, so there should be an overlapping chain of oversight. It should be overlapping. The parent has their own role to play in ensuring how you put your child in a school and you don't know what is happening to that child part-time. It's absurd. If you are totally disconnected from that child, that's unthinkable.
I mean, some of these children are not allowed phones, in school.
So one of the things could be that the school can arrange for a consistent talking time to the parent or to the guardian of the child. If it's weekly, if it's every weekend, if it's twice a week, maybe on a Wednesday, then on a Saturday.
And that's why we have visiting days. I know that we have visiting days.
So it's obvious now that visiting days is not doing enough. Okay, maybe in a term you have just one visiting day, or twice, or thrice. So that means you need to keep watch on your child, even if it's far away from you, more than just once, twice, or thrice. You need to do more than that.
So on the side of the school authorities, who is supposed to make sure that the child is also safe? Aside from the parent checking on
that's one level.
Child, what is the school supposed to be doing?
Okay, so the school is supposed to set up a measure. It's wrong to just commit them to the hands of a housemaster and just leave them for the school management. So what kind of interaction exists between the school management and these guys in the dorm? That needs to be spelled out. There needs to be a clear direction or a clear thing that all can see. That maybe once in a month or twice in a month, the school management itself sits with these guys, Well, it's just an idea that since we have hired someone to take care of them, the person is capable of taking care of them.
And another issue is that the teachers may even be overwhelmed, because some of the schools, the number of students in the school is not commensurable to the number of teachers in the school, and so it is for even the infrastructure, maybe hostels and all of that. So you have a lot of children crowded in, the same dormitories and all of that. That's also something to look at.
Yeah,
who is supposed to maybe, for instance, enforce laws, if there are, to make sure that certain requirements are observed in making sure that children are safe.
Okay, so at that level you have two tiers. So for that you have the school management doing that, and you have government doing that. So if you are talking about rules, regulations guiding the operation of a boarding house, there should be one by the school management and one by government. There should be a constant check on the side of the school. You talked about infrastructure. That's a very key issue. Key because if you have a number of students, you have a large number of students in your dormitory, and the structure, the current structure you have cannot take care of them, you're already creating the problem. If you are understaffed for your dormitory, you are already creating the problem. If, for instance, you have like 50 students in your dormitory and you have just one person taking care of them, you have already created a problem, because as he's attending to one, something else might be happening in the other room.
All right, now let's look at, justice for some of these victims, these abuse, molestation and all of that. Do we have a juvenile system, for children in Nigeria, and how efficient is it?
Thank you for the other leg of the question. How efficient? The truth is, they are not efficient. If the major system of it, which is the correctional service, the main one that we know, the correctional service, if they are having challenge operating effectively and efficiently, so what do you think of a juvenile center? I know of one in Ogun State. I know of one in Ilorin, Kwara State. I think they have one up north. I don't think we have up to 10 juvenile facilities in this country. I'm not certain. So the challenge is, okay, so let me quickly tell a short story again. When I was doing my master's, I have a friend whose research work was actually on juvenile homes. It's interesting to note that the habits they form in the juvenile homes around Nigeria is worse than the one they came in with. Yeah.
So even as we talk about justice for the victims, another thing is that it may end up even hardening the person who is involved in that.
Exactly.
Now, there is this issue also about shielding, children who perpetrate this kind of things, by their parents. So maybe you have a child whose parent is well-to-do and then, got involved with this, and then you see efforts by parents to, shield their children from facing consequences, for their action.
Yeah, I think that is almost like a norm in Nigeria, being perpetrated by the upper class of the country. So when you have a child that has glaringly gone against the rules, regulations, or the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and the child is expected to be punished. Of course, there's a way they are punished for juveniles. There's a way they are punished, different from others. If the child is supposed to be punished, and yet you are seeing the parents going out of their way to ensure that they pervert the rail of justice, it's terrible. It's terrible, and it speaks to the larger picture of what is going on in our society, where people just pervert justice. They make the entire system corrupt and they break it down, because the impunity, the level of impunity is very bad. It's very, very bad that people believe that they can go away with anything. So if a parent has that kind of mindset, of course, it's going to extend it to the child if the child is found wanting of a particular thing. So, and I think, so you can imagine on this particular story of Dowen, you can imagine the first statement, I don't know if we should call it an official statement or not, about the child suffering injury from football.
Yes.
So you can imagine how, when you see the picture of the boy, and you see, and you look at the statement that was released, there's no correlation. How can the face of the child be that battered, and yet you're talking about football? We all played football. If I sustain injury, I know where my injury will be, not on my face. It's not like I went into UFC and I was fighting. You know, it's
all right. Now, we agree that there are advantages, you know, of operating these boarding schools.
Yeah.
However, now this is our reality.
Yeah.
Children are now, I mean, not to even mention the issue of abduction of school children,
Yeah.
you know, which is also entirely a different conversation,
Yeah.
you know, on its own. How can we ensure safety of children, you know, in boarding schools?
So the responsibility is, like we were saying, in 3 tiers: the parent, the school management, and government. Let's start from government. I believe that a license will be given to anybody to operate a school in Nigeria. And once you now say you want to even operate a boarding, there's a license that will cover that. So because the system needs to see you that way. So what happens to oversight? What happens to monitoring? If they monitor, what do they monitor? And specifically, we'll be talking about Ministry of Education because they are in charge of this. So what do they do? What are the measurements for monitoring? Is it that you just go there and you look at the structure? Oh, they have facilities. They have a good, is it recreation or whatever facility that you are measuring? Is it just about that? Or you look at each child and you converse, there's a way you communicate with them to get information out of them. Do you do that? Obviously, I don't think they do that. I don't think they do that, which is very wrong. So if you are looking for, or we are talking about safety in these schools, that is one thing that we need. Government needs to look inward and re-energize or reinvigorate the system to play a better monitoring oversight on these schools. Of course, for crying out loud, you were the ones who gave them the license to work. So definitely you should be able to monitor. There should be terms. There should be things that these schools need to meet, criteria that they must meet. And it's not that they meet the criteria once, then you let them be, you go back to sleep. No, it's continuous. It should be like a timely thing. If in a term you go there 3 times, 4 times, you determine that and you do that. On the part of the school management, they also need to do theirs. As much as they are getting the pressure from government to ensure that the system works well, they also need to put in place that system that will make it work well. If you need to hire more than one, hire more than one. If you need to put CCTV that is connected to the table of whoever is the head of the school, connect it. If it's to create short codes or almost like what you call emergency number for a child that is being molested or being abused, bullied by a senior student, put it out. And for the parents, they also need to play their part. Don't just leave your words to these schools and go back to sleep. No. You need to constantly check on them to ensure that they are safe.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and coming on the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
I look forward to having you again.
Yeah.
We have to end the discussion here. Now, we've been speaking with Olani Olumayowa. He is Research Officer, Clean Foundation, and this is where we draw the curtain on the discussion today. Join us again next week for another edition of the program. I am Aibelia. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.